Hello and welcome everyone. Today we'll be exploring Bioshock 1 and its connections to mythology. More specifically, we'll be exploring the city of Rapture itself, and how it is tied to the Greek pantheon and Mount Olympus. So let's dive deep into the depths and explore mythology and gaming.
I rejected those answers. Instead, I chose something different. I chose the impossible. I chose Rapture.
The underwater city of Rapture is a stunning example of how myth and legend can inspire works of art and entertainment. Bioshock's creators have skillfully woven elements of classical mythology into the very nature of Rapture, giving you, the player, an immersive and unforgettable experience. Spoiler warning for anyone who hasn't played the game yet. You play as Jack, a legless protagonist dressed in his finest wool sweater, winding their way through the desolate and war-torn city of Rapture. You travel through the different levels of the city, fighting off hordes of splicers and genetically modified people, as well as Big Daddies, who are the protectors of the Little Sisters that roam through each of the levels. You're led by a man named Atlas, who asks,
"Now would you kindly head to Ryan's office and kill the son of a bitch? It's time to finish this."
This ultimately leads to you killing the creator of the city and finding that Atlas has lied to you the whole time. Instead, Atlas is a man named Frank Fontaine, who sought to control everything, including the powers of the plasmids. At the heart of Rapture is the idea of a utopia, a perfect society where the brightest minds can live and work free from the constraints of the outside world. While this idea of a utopia with capitalism and individualism may work for a time, it leads to the demise of the city and its people. This can equate to Plato's talks that echo the ancient Greek myth of Atlantis, a mythical island that was said to be the most advanced and prosperous society in the world. In the myth, Plato explains that Poseidon and his siblings were gifted with plots of land throughout the known world. Atlantis, being gifted to the god of the sea, sat in the middle of the ocean between Europe and North America and was named for its very first king, Atlas. Now, this Atlas was not this Atlas. As Atlantis took the name of its first king, so too did the ocean surrounding the massive land, becoming the Atlantic Ocean. However, the hubris of the people believing that they were superior and godlike eventually led to the gods punishing the city and her citizens, sending earthquakes and floods to smite the kingdom, sinking the city into the ocean. Bioshock uses symbolism and name choices that again tie directly to the Greek pantheon of Olympus to show that each area you enter is a part of Mount Olympus. One of the first things that you encounter is the lighthouse, being a beacon for incoming travelers to enter into the city. Though, when you look closer, you can see that it is a symbol for Mount Olympus, as the lighthouse seems to be as tall as a mountain and has a godly shine at the top, alluding to what is to come. When you enter the bathysphere near the bottom of the lighthouse, you descend further and further into the depths of the ocean. This may be a looser connection, but I believe that this is where you, the player, travel through the underworld, dying and leaving the old but known world and entering into the new and godly realm. Throughout the cityscape of Rapture, you enter through multiple levels of the city, each one unique and featuring a variety of different names fitting for each of the areas. From Neptune's Bounty to Olympus Heights, each one with secrets to discover that connect to the Greek pantheon. Let's begin this with Neptune's Bounty, one of the first areas of the game and the fishing district for Rapture. Specifically named for the Roman god of the sea, Neptune is the Greek equivalent to Poseidon. Like Atlantis, being graced by the divinity of Poseidon, so too did Neptune's bounty get graced by the plasmid breakthrough, with finding the mutated sea slug containing the force atom. These divine interventions are what brought the cities to new ends and making their societies better than ever. However, thanks to their hubris and greed, these would eventually lead to both their downfalls. As the water flows through the cracks of the city, slowly filling Neptune's bounty with water, so too did the floodwaters bring Atlantis into the ocean. One of the next areas you encounter a similar connection with is Arcadia, the 5th level and garden for the city of Rapture. Within Arcadia, you experience a lush environment full of rich scents of flowers, fruits, and vegetables. Meant as the oxygen producer for the city, Arcadia is meant to be a paradise within the utopia. These connect strongly within the Greek myths, as Arcadia specifically means a region of simple pleasure. Arcadia in mythology is believed to be a nomadic utopia for all those living there under the care of the watchful eyes of the gods Hermes and Pan. These two deities sought to keep their land pristine and uncorrupted by man to maintain a Garden of Eden, a paradise meant for gods, nymphs, and shepherds. As well, you encounter enemies that emphasize the corruption of man. Many of the Houdini splicers you meet here form a group called the Saturnine. The Saturnine is something I'll cover more in another video, but these men and women claim to worship nature, but set fire to idols, seeking to corrupt the land of Arcadia and hoard it for themselves, becoming the gods of the wilderness. The power core to all of Rapture and seemingly the bottom of the city, Hephaestus is a forge used to shape the very mountain over top of it. Without this, there would be no city, just a man and his dream. In the game, you travel through Hephaestus, seeking to enter into Andrew Ryan's office to put an end to his dictatorship, turning off the power and allowing Atlas to take control. Hephaestus, in Greek myth, is the smith god deep inside Mount Olympus, forging the weapons for the other gods and shaping their very realm. It is here that you, the player, unknowingly open Pandora's box and discover the fates. When you finally enter into Andrew Ryan's office, you come across a board connecting everything on it to 3 simple words: "Would you kindly?" A simple phrase used throughout the game, determining what you do and where you go. It's these 3 words that connect to the fates within Greek mythology: Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos. The Moirai, as they're known by the Greeks, control the supposed free will and destiny of every living thing. Clotho is the spinner of the thread of a person's life, while Lachesis is the one who measures the thread. And finally, Atropos is the one who cuts the thread, marking the end and death of the person. It's these 3 that see to all the events within a person's life and death. It's "would you kindly" that sets you, the player, on your path of life and death. Before we tackle the connection with Pandora's box, as previously stated, I want to explain how Andrew Ryan and you, the player, connect to the Greek myths. Within the same room in discovering the origin of the phrase "would you kindly" are 2 audio files discussing the nature of a small child, you. You discover that Jack, the player, is the illegitimate son of Andrew Ryan, destined to kill their own father. Like the prophecy of Uranus with Cronus, Cronus with Zeus, and Zeus with Ares, each was destined to kill their father, and each sought to preserve their stake at the top. So too does Ryan seek to maintain his status as leader of Rapture, avoiding his own demise at the hands of his own son. Ultimately, you kill Andrew Ryan and fulfill the prophecy of the Fates, committing patricide and seemingly taking control over Rapture.
Say hi to Ryan for me.
Hinted at throughout the majority of Bioshock, Atlas reveals that he is more than what he says. Taking the genetic key and undoing Ryan's control over Rapture, you open a path that sets the city further into chaos and ruin, as if opening Pandora's box. The story of Pandora shares that when Prometheus stole fire from the gods, Zeus went to Hephaestus, ordering him to craft the first woman, Pandora. With her, she was given a pithos, or a Greek jar, that was said to contain magical gifts, but Pandora was never allowed to open it. After some time becoming married to Epimetheus, the brother of Prometheus, he allowed her curiosity to grow and flourish, leading Pandora to open the jar, only to free the evils and illnesses of the world within it, quickly closing the jar after unknowingly leaving hope inside. As Jack, you unknowingly open the hardships that you will now have to face later on in the game. Progressing through the story, you run into the luxury district of Olympus Heights, the homes of the rich, powerful, and residing gods among men. The name itself connects to the Greek pantheon, living in the highest part of the earth, closest to the heavens, as these tenants live in the higher ends of Rapture. Moreover, within the district are 2 living quarters, befitting of the name of Olympus Heights, Athena's glory, and Mercury's sweets. Athena is the goddess of war and wisdom, sharing the fact that many of the women you encounter throughout the game, Julie Langford and Bridget Tenenbaum, for instance, are fighters and intelligent women, while Mercury was the god of commerce and communication, with his Greek equivalent being Hermes. It is here that we learn that the most communicating and most wealthy, like Sandra Cohen and Frank Fontaine, live like gods. Succeeding the powerful and rich district of Olympus Heights is the ragged and downtrodden home of Rapture's working class, Apollo Square. Seen as the poorest area within the city of Rapture, it may seem unusual to have the name of Apollo Square, being that Apollo was the god of light, archery, and of the sun. However, it is the ragged working class that is the light and sun of Rapture, working to maintain their city to keep the lights on. So too are the residents here the sun, as they are the energy source that keeps the city alive. Within the district of Apollo Square as well are 2 apartment complexes, Artemis Suites and Hestia Chambers. These 2 choices may seem unusual with their namesakes, but are very befitting to the conditions and connections to mythology. Starting with Artemis, she was the virgin goddess of the hunt and wild animals, but as well the goddess of childbirth, as it's here that many of the families of Rapture lived, communed, and worked, where families and children lived crammed together, ready to be hunted by both Andrew Ryan and Fontaine's industries. The other flats located in Apollo Square are the Hestia Chambers. Hestia was the sister to Zeus and goddess of home and hospitality. It's with her that families were protected from the other gods and other people. However, she also oversaw political groups within different communities. It's here that many of the working and ragged citizens were spliced with plasmids and used as pawns of war between the 2 factions of Ryan and Fontaine. It's Hestia's political affiliation that fits with her sitting in the poorer side of the underwater city. Finally, we come to Point Prometheus, the pinnacle of the entire city. Named for the Greek titan that stole fire from the gods, Prometheus is perfect for this section in the game. It is here that the plasmids for the city were first made, along with the other genetic modifications for Rapture's citizens. Additionally, it is within Point Prometheus that you must augment yourself in becoming a Big Daddy. This act is reminiscent of Prometheus taking the holy and divine flame to the humans to advance their livelihoods, as you, the player, steal the powers of the Big Daddy to advance not only yourself, but also those harmed by the tensions between Fontaine and Ryan. It is atop Point Prometheus that you encounter Fontaine, using all the Atom in the city to turn himself into a monster. He sees this as the next evolution of man that he can make himself into a god. As the Titans, like Atlas, sought to overthrow the Olympian gods and maintain their power, Fontaine too seeks to hoard his newfound power and control, overthrowing all those before him. Even his look presents his alias of Atlas, a bronze and statuesque figure holding the heavens on his shoulders, holding on to that power struggle he fought so long for. With all that said though, I think that about covers it, folks. These deep dives and connections are always fun to do, and I hope you've enjoyed them as well. If you have, please be sure to press that like button and subscribe to stay up to date on new videos. I plan on discussing more with Bioshock and its sequels in later videos, but if you have any suggestions for what to cover next, or thoughts on what I may have missed, please leave a comment to let me know. Thank you again, everyone, and I'll see you all in the next one.
And in the end, what was your reward? You never said, but I think I know. A family.